Pardon me. Sorry, that's better. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to today's morning blast. It is Monday, the 23rd of June, all day. You join me and Mr. Michael Brown as we kickstart your trading day and week, I suppose, as it's Monday, with a review of what's happened last week over the weekend, a preview of what's happening today, and because it's Monday, the preview of the week ahead. But before we do, I'll get the legals out the way. So as usual, nothing discussed in this space. This session constitute trading or investment advice or infers any kind of endorsement by PIQ, myself, Ryan Paisley, or indeed Mr. Michael Brown. Hello, Mr. Michael Brown.
Good morning, Ryan. Good morning, everyone, and very happy Monday to you all.
Yeah. Do you mind if I start with a little bit of a rant?
Oh, go on, because I'm a bit grumpy this morning as
Oh,
well.
perfect. Right.
Probably for the same reason, I think.
Can everyone repeat after me? The Strait of Hormuz is not fucking closed. They haven't said they're going to close it. It's absolute bullshit. All that's happened is the Iranian government, parliament, said, and it's a stress the parliament, said that they voted in favour of closing it, which is not the same as closing it. And also, my mum has about as much say in the military matters of Iran as the Iranian parliament do. They say stuff for optics and just for domestically to look like they're doing the right thing. They have no sway whatsoever. As it stands, there is no movements, no kind of escalation, nothing at all in the Strait of Hormuz to see that it's going to be closed. Stop with the bullshit and the hyperbole, please. And again, once again, as always, my favourite trade ever, fade the Globex popping crude, pays again. It's the trade that never loses until it does.
Yeah, you're right. It's ridiculous. I'm surprised our listeners can hear us this morning over all the saber rattling and hot air that's been going
Oh,
on the internet over the weekend.
I
It's
mean,
it's
I mean,
just
just
frankly laughable.
literally 17 minutes ago, Wall Street Mav, 1.6 million followers on Twitter, posted breaking and then a screenshot of some nefarious headline that says Iran just ordered the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. It didn't. It's
Uh,
absolute bullshit.
it's
But you know
ridiculous.
what? You know what? If they want to be counterparty, then I'm happily going to scoop them up. So that's fine.
Well,
But yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
But anyway,
Now you've got that off your chest, and
sorry.
we've had our little therapy session. Do you want to go through your geopolitical headlines from the
Oh yeah,
weekend?
God,
I'm
I'll go
sure
over
you're
the
itching to do that.
I'll go over the Iran. I'm actually not going to mention the Strait of Hormuz at all in this
Well, it's
because
shut, isn't
fuck
it? So
it.
there's no point.
Well, exactly that. So just as what we've been doing recently, I'll just read out the Iranian headlines because obviously a lot of this feeds through into what myself and Michael will be talking about as the show progresses. So over the weekend and overnight, what we've had from the Iran side, and again, this is from Zach's very, very awesome overnight news roundup that we put together, or he puts together, and I just post out. Do check that
I
out.
don't
Do
think there's
follow.
much we involved. Is
Well, I copy and paste. If you're not already following Zach, who's at the top of the listeners on this, do so. He's an incredibly good follower, an incredibly good chap, and also subscribe to our Substack, etc., etc. But anyway, Iran, what have we got? U.S. strikes Iranian nuclear site. Obviously, unless you've been living under a rock, you would know this already. U.S. bombers and submarines launched heavy strikes on Iran's Fordo, Natanz, and Isham nuclear facility Sunday morning. The IAEA reports no radiation leaks, but satellite images show significant damage at Fordo, with blocked entrances and large holes. Pentagon officials called the damage severe, though centrifugal status remains unclear. That's everyone's picking this up in terms of news-wise. Uncertainty over Iran's uranium stockpile. Senior US officials admit they don't know the location of Iran's near bomb-grade uranium. The IAEA director, Grossi, believes it was moved, and Israeli officials report Iran relocated equipment and uranium recently. That's according to the New York Times. Oh, someone's just going past on a motorbike. Apologies. Trump hints at regime change. President Trump posted on Truth Social suggesting monumental damage, doing air quotes there, to Iran's nuclear sites and floating the idea of regime change if Iran's leadership falls to,
it?
quote, make Iran great again. Uh, and finally, on the Iranian news, before I go back to Michael, the escalating conflict with Israel. Israel conducted further strikes on Iran's military infrastructure on Monday, while Iran retaliated with a missile barrage against Israel. Funny enough, we did see headlines about 2 minutes ago before we came on to air saying that Israel just picked up more missiles heading their way. Israeli PM Netanyahu claims that Israel is close to neutralizing Iran's ballistic missile and nuclear threats. Again, that's Wall Street Journal and Reuters. But that's their update on Iran. What else is going on, my dear friend?
Good stuff. Thank you, Ryan. Right, away from all of that, we can get back to, as I said this morning, actually, just geopolitical events are a distraction rather than a narrative for
Yeah.
markets, it seems.
Oh,
They're,
can I just say, potentially the most shocking news of the weekend?
Go on.
Waller has done a opening remarks at some conventional conference this morning. Fed's Waller did not mention monetary policy.
Yeah, I need to talk about him, actually.
Okay. Yeah, I get comfy.
I may as well start with that, to
Go
be
on.
completely honest. I was going to start with trade, but we'll start with the Fed, because we heard again on Friday, President Trump was talking about whether he needs to change his mind and end up firing Jay Powell. We've also had Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick joining in on these attacks over the weekend, saying that there need to be immediate and large rate cuts. Quite ironic, actually, because 9 months ago, Lutnick was saying that the Fed cutting 50 basis points was a big red flag and the economy must be much worse than anyone knew about. And now he is a massive dove advocating for large rate cuts. So, I'm not for one moment going to suggest that Howard Lutnick is the slimy sort of character who would change his mind just to suck up to his boss, but he has had a sort of Damascene conversion over the last 9 months or so. And of course, amid all of this criticism, which the Fed are rightly going to pay absolutely no attention to, or most of the Fed, I should say, because Fed Governor Christopher Waller, who you'll recall, of course, Trump appointed to the board during his first term, is effectively auditioning in public for the chair's job at this point. He popped up on CNBC on Friday, mere minutes after the blackout period ended, saying that they should look through any tariff effect on inflation, that there is no reason why they should wait much longer to cut, and that the Fed could cut rates as early as the July meeting. Now, I will give Waller a little bit of credit because he did say that he doesn't think anyone else on the FOMC will agree with him that they should deliver a rate cut that soon, which is pretty much spot on. But to be frank, can he make it any more obvious at this point that he wants Jay Powell's job next May? He's basically, the sort of long and the short of his remarks is, Mr. President, I will do whatever you want me to do. Please give me the job. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I think the reason why he hasn't made any comments on monetary policy this morning is because he can't, because he's so far up Trump's arse, we've actually managed to lose the bloke.
Perfect. Well, do you know what made me laugh is this has been very clear for like a long period of time, and yet what was it? Thursday, Friday, I saw some kind of self-proclaimed market experts going, "Oh, I think this might be Waller trying to position himself for the Fed chair."
Oh,
I'm like,
really?
really? Where have you been for the last fucking 6 months? You fucking idiots! Sorry, gone.
Fair enough. The geezer wants a promotion, but just audition in private, for God's sake. Anyway, money markets have completely ignored him because before he spoke, we had about a 12% chance of a 25 basis point cut in July, and we still got a 12% chance of a 25 basis point cut in July. And the last thing I'll say on this is actually two things. One is the more that Trump and Lutnick and whoever else in the administration rant away about the need for rate cuts, the harder it actually becomes for the Fed to deliver them, even when the data justifies it, because they'll want to prove their independence.
Yes,
And
exactly
the
that.
second point is, okay, fine, you want rate cuts, you want lower interest burden on your debt, etc., etc. Well, the problem is, if the Fed were to deliver the 250 basis points of cuts that Trump is calling for right now, then the 10-year yield is going to trade at 6 or 7% tomorrow morning. So you're not going to get the lower debt cost that you want. You're actually going to make the problem even worse. So my advice to the president would be shut the hell up. But I can't imagine he's going to do that anytime soon.
I think that goes for most things, to be fair.
Yeah, probably does. Anyway, away from the Fed, we did have a few headlines on the trade front over the last 24 hours or so. Bloomberg sources reporting that the EU believe the US is pushing for unbalanced concessions in their ongoing trade talks. Colour me shocked. Apparently, Washington have requested various measures, including those relating to quotas on fish exports. Why the hell does it always come down to fishing when we're dealing with the EU? We had this problem with Brexit as well. Apparently, the US is making all of these various demands, and this is leading to tough decisions within the European Union over whether or not to move ahead with countermeasures if the terms of any trade deal don't improve. These reports also reiterated the EU's belief that the 10% baseline tariff will stay no matter what deal they strike with the US. And of course, this comes just 2.5 weeks ahead of the pause on Liberation Day tariffs expiring on the 9th of July. And of course, the EU is due to be hit with a 50% levy at that point, if there is not an extension, which there could well be. Also on the trade front, Japan, they were supposed to be having a meeting with the United States towards the beginning of next week. They have shelved those plans after Washington demanded more defence spending from Japan. This is according to reports in the FT. Apparently Japan were asked to spend 3.5% of GDP on defence. The US had previously asked them to spend 3%. Japan said yes. The US then came back and went, actually, we've changed our mind. We want you to spend 3.5%. And Tokyo essentially turned around and gone, get knotted. So we will see how that one pans out. And lastly, on the trade front, the US, according to the Wall Street Journal, is preparing action to look at chip plants in China. Of course, the US trying to crack down on what tech China is able to get its hands on, and they are potentially looking at revoking some of the waivers that have been given to firms like Samsung and TSMC, which currently allow them to use US technology in Chinese factories. So I think the issue there is the US saying, well, if our tech is in a factory in China, what control do we have over it? What access do the Chinese have on it, to that technology, etc., etc., etc. In terms of data from Friday, it was a relatively light calendar, to be completely honest with you. We had retail sales out of Canada, which rose by 0.3% on the month in April, although Stacan, according to their flash estimate, expects sales to have fallen by a fairly sizable 1.1% in May. We also have manufacturing figures out of the Philly Fed on Friday as well. Their index remaining at -4 in June, unchanged from the level seen in the month of May. Away from that, a few other notable headlines as the week drew to a close. Before I hand back to you, Ryan. Firstly, Japan, the Ministry of Finance confirming plans to trim super long JGB issuance. They are going to cut issuance of 20-year debt by 200 billion yen per auction and cut issuance of 30-year and 40-year bonds by 100 billion yen per auction. That cut to the 20-year issuance is actually double the amount the markets were expecting, and these cuts are going to be offset by issuing more 2- and 5-year notes instead. So essentially what Japan are doing is cutting issuance at the long end and increasing issuance at the short end in an attempt to relieve some of the pressure that we have seen, the selling pressure, I should say, that we've seen at the long end of the Japanese curve in recent weeks. And a couple of headlines in the AI technology space. Firstly, Perplexity, which is the latest AI company that everyone seems to be going mad over. I see Tom Talks Cars on the call this morning. He seems to be Claude's biggest fan at this point. Apparently Meta had talks with Perplexity about purchasing the company. Meta apparently could not come to an arrangement with Perplexity and instead decided to make a multi-billion-dollar investment in a firm called Scale AI, who, until I read this report, I'd never heard of. Reports out later also noted that Apple have apparently been discussing Perplexity as well, purchasing Perplexity, I should say. Of course, Apple are lagging massively behind their peers in terms of this sort of AI arms race. So I think there is increasing speculation that the easiest, or perhaps the only way for them to catch up may be to make a sizable acquisition. So certainly one to watch there. And last but by no means least, Reuters sources reporting that Foxconn and Nvidia are apparently in talks to deploy what they're calling humanoid robots in a Houston factory that will produce Nvidia. in a Houston-based factory that will produce NVIDIA's AI servers. The reason I mention this is, one, it's kind of scary to think about humanoid robots, but secondly, the Trump administration have been running around going, you need to build stuff in the US, we want to bring manufacturing back, we want to give people, jobs in factories. Well, you might get manufacturing back in the States, but if all that manufacturing is done by robots, you're not going to get the manufacturing jobs back in the United States. So one to watch there to see how that develops. And for the time being, that's all from me.
Very good, very good, very good, Mr. Brown. So I'll read out some choice headlines from our overnight news roundup, as usual. Obviously, I've already done the Iranian one, so let's start with trade. South Korea exports surge ahead of tariffs. No shock there. South Korea's June trade data shows a sharp rise in exports to the US as manufacturers rushed shipments before the July deadline. That would double broad tariff rates. Cobalt prices jump on Congo ban. Cobalt prices and shares surged in China after the Democratic Republic of Congo extended its export ban to September, tightening supplies for batteries and alloys. That's according to Bloomberg.
Just to say, that is one of the most ironic country names in the world.
Why?
Well,
Oh,
I don't think
Democratic,
they're a
yes,
particularly
yeah.
democratic
Well,
nation, are they?
I'll be honest. I think you'll find. I think there's like 3 or 4 countries in the world which will have democratic in
I
their
think
name,
North
and
Korea is technically one of
yeah,
them as
yeah,
well,
this is
isn't
it.
it?
This is it. And like, basically, it's a huge red flag if a country has to put democratic in their name. It's like, well, you're probably not.
It's like when a bank has to say, but I promise we are solvent. It's like, you're not, are you?
No, exactly that. India's export orders surge. India's economic activity accelerated in June, driven by a surge in new export orders, boosting manufacturing sector, according to HSBC's flash survey. This ties in with what we've been saying for months. Is that all front running ahead of tariffs, etc.,
Mm.
etc. And then that also means likely the data that follows this will be much worse than expected, and then it balances out. Yada yada yada. In macro news, Trump criticizes Fed's Powell. No surprise there. Trump attacked Fed Chair Powell on Truth Social, questioning why the Fed board doesn't override him and hinting at possibly firing him, though Powell's term ends soon anyway. Fed's daily on policy guidance. Fed official Mary Daly suggested the Fed should reduce forward guidance on monetary policy, reducing its uncertain economic times. I'm actually in favour of this because I think it's a tough ask asking them to predict what's going to happen in a year's time or 2 years' time. And I think it just muddies the water. I'd rather they were kind of,
Yeah.
had the resources and the time necessary just to focus on, what's, the 6 month horizon, because I think that's all really, let's be honest, that's all really you can expect from them. But anyway, that's just my 2 cents on that. PJM declares energy emergency. PJM interconnectors serving 20% of US households issued an energy emergency alert. Power demand is set to hit a 14-year high due to intense heat this week. So I want to keep an eye on there. Obviously, we saw what happened in Portugal and Spain recently with basically huge power outages, millions and millions affected. China's land revenue plummets. China's revenue from land sales dropped to a decade low, widening the budget deficit as the government boosts spending to support the economy. Moving to the ECB, the ECB urged to provide stimulus. No change there. ECB's Centino called for further stimulus to support the weakening Eurozone economy, highlighting the need for divisive action. PIMCO, they're betting on Japanese bonds. Bond giant PIMCO is buying long-term Japanese government debt, capitalizing on what its fixed income chief Andrew Balls called a, quote, dislocation in the market. That's gone to the FT. SNB, the old Swiss National Bank, ready to intervene. Swiss National Bank Chairman Schlegel said the SNB is prepared to intervene in foreign currency markets to meet its inflation targets. No change there from the Swiss. Geopolitics, excluding Iran, obviously. NATO boosts defence spending target. NATO members agreed to raise their defence spending target to 5% of GDP following Trump's demands. So Spain resisted compliance ahead of Trump at the summit in The Hague. One to watch on this. I think there's a lot of, it's one thing NATO members agreeing to it. Is complete other thing than following through. I think a lot of nations are going to struggle with this. And I think Spain are just basically the honest ones in the room that have gone, hang on, there's no chance we can do this. One thing to note, and it kind of did flag in my mind when I was reading this over the weekend, but I seem to remember a story from Germany a year or so ago where it turned out when they were kind of doing their numbers to show that they were actually paying 2% of GDP into defence, they were actually counting like regional offices and stuff and like departments that had nothing to do with the military, but they were just kind of like, oh, it's like related in some form. So there's a lot of
Oh
kind
yeah,
of
but Keir Starmer's going to do that.
there's a lot of
We're
gamification. We'll
we're
find that the NHS is actually part funded by the military at this point, or something stupid like that.
Well, no, genuinely, we're spending £1.5 billion to improve regional broadband in the UK, and that's counting towards defence spending.
Oh, there you go.
So
Perfect. There you go. Accountants of the world unite. Perfect. Russia
Rich Bernard
intensifies.
is tearing his hair out now.
Yeah, exactly that. Russia intensifies Kiev's attacks. Russia launched a massive missile and drone strike on Kiev, killing at least 6 as Moscow escalates attacks on Ukrainian civil infrastructure. In equity news, finally, before I hand back to you, Tesla launches driverless taxi service. Tesla debuted its long-awaited driverless taxi service on Sunday, starting with a small group of riders, making a step towards Elon Musk's vision for transformative business. To be fair, this is a complete load of shit. Basically, there's only a couple of cars and only a couple of people are allowed to use them. And basically, there's going to be someone, if not at the wheel, but very close to the wheel at all times. They are so far behind the likes of Waymo and stuff like that. It's ridiculous. But you try to say anything that criticizes Tesla or Elon Musk and a load of weird nerds attack you online. So probably best I shut the fuck up. Bank of New York Mellon eyes Northern Trust merger. That'd be huge. Bank of New York Mellon approached Northern Trust, the custodian bank, for a potential merger aiming to combine its smaller rival in a significant banking deal. To be fair, I think it's been a long time since we've had a banking deal of that kind of size. Advent buys Spectris for 3.8 billion. Buyout firm Advent agreed to acquire UK precision equipment maker Spectris for 3.8 billion pounds sterling, Great British pounds. Advancing private equity activity in the sector. Toyota, they raised US vehicle prices. Toyota Motors announced it will increase prices for some US sold vehicles by an average of $270 starting in July, citing rising costs. ENI sells 20% of Plentitude. ENI agreed to sell the 20% stake in its renewable energy arm, Plentitude, to Ares Alternative Credit Management, catchy name there, guys, for €2 billion, marking its second stake sale in the unit. And that's it from me. Back to you in the studio.
Good stuff. Thank you, Ryan. In terms of today then and the week ahead, today we have, it is PMI day, of course. So either
Hey.
celebrate or commiserate as you see fit. We get the latest data out of the Eurozone at the top of the hour in about 9 minutes time. And then we get the UK surveys at 9:30. The composite gauge in Europe is expected to tick marginally higher to 50.5 from a prior 50.2. The composite gauge in the UK is expected to do the same thing, rising to 50.5 from a prior 50.3. In terms of other bits and bobs today, we also get flash PMIs out of the States, existing home sales stateside as well. Plenty of Fed speakers in the mix, including Bowman, Goolsbee, Williams and Kugler, and the ECB President Christine Lagarde is due to make remarks later on today as well. In terms of the remainder of the week, just going day by day, it is actually quite a light data docket, to be honest with you, or at least in terms of impactful releases. Although do bear in mind that we are moving towards the end of the month, the end of the quarter, and of course the end of the first half of the year. So we are likely to hear plenty about rebalancing flows as we move through the rest of the week. A little bit early, Ryan, but maybe not for you. In terms of tomorrow, though, we do have the latest IFO sentiment surveys out of Germany, inflation figures out of Canada, consumer confidence out of the States, and we also get some treasury supply with a 2-year auction of $69 billion worth being sold off tomorrow. Also on Tuesday, Fed Chair Powell heads to Capitol Hill for the first of 2 days of congressional testimony, and there's plenty of ECB and BOE speakers in the mix as well, including President Lagarde of the ECB and Governor Bailey from the Bank of England. And we also on Tuesday get earnings from FedEx, who are of course an important bellwether stock, and we will see whether or not they are able to deliver.
I literally, part of me was screaming just to get the pun in before you. I saw it coming miles off.
Sorry. On Wednesday, we get inflation data out of Australia, new home sales out of the States, 5-year Treasury supply, Fed Chair Powell having day 2 of his testimony on Capitol Hill, and notable earnings after the close on Wednesday come from the likes of Micron, who are, of course, a big player in the semiconductor space. Thursday, we get the final read on Q1 GDP out of the States, May durable goods orders, jobless claims, where the continuing claims print pertains to the June non-farm payroll survey week, and this week's Treasury supply wraps up with a 7-year sale on Thursday as well. Plenty of central bank speakers too. ECB President Lagarde speaking for a third time in 4 days. God only knows why she needs to speak so much this week. Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey also speaks again on Thursday. And notable earnings after the close on Thursday come from Nike. And in terms of beating expectations, well, I think they'll probably just about do it.
Fuck off.
Rounding things out on Friday, we have Ryan's favourite inflation metric, which is Japan's Tokyo CPI print. We have the Fed's...
Don't do the eyes.
Oh, no. We have the Fed's preferred inflation metric, which is, of course, the core PCE number, although Jay Powell said at his press conference last week that core PCE is set to print at 2.6% in May. Also Friday, we have GDP out of Canada, final consumer sentiment data out of the University of Michigan, and we also have remarks from the likes of the Fed's Hammack, Cook, and Williams. And for the time being, of course, the other thing to bear in mind, not only rebalancing flows, but also continued focus on both geopolitical headlines and trade headlines. But apart from that, see a lot from me this morning.
Wonderful, wonderful. Very good stuff. Thank you very much, Mr. Michael Brown. Listeners, thank you as always for tuning in. We really do appreciate you. I'm going to go and have a coffee. Whatever you're doing today, keep it tight, stay safe. Much love, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Goodbye.
Bye for now.
And remember, the Strait of Hormuz isn't closed, you fucking idiots.